Look at this map. I want you to really look at it. These red dots, each one is an ancient capital, a city that ruled an empire, a civilization, a continent. They're spread across every corner of the planet. Different cultures, different centuries, different religions, different languages, different everything. And yet, when I started plotting their elevations, their altitude above sea level, something happened that I genuinely did not expect. When I started this investigation, I expected to find a single number, a universal altitude, something clean and dramatic. I didn't find that. What I found was subtler and in some ways more interesting. A pattern of decision-making that shows up across every civilization I looked at on every continent across thousands of years of history, with no possibility of shared communication between the cultures involved. Whether that pattern is the result of parallel practical logic or something harder to explain, I'll let you decide, but you need to see the data first. I'm not picking cities that fit a theory. I'm not cherry-picking data. I'm taking the 20 most significant ancient capitals in recorded history and checking one thing, the elevation they were built at. I'm using topographical data that's publicly available. The same data NASA uses to map surface elevation across the planet. Anyone watching this can check every single number I'm about to give you. That matters to me. If this pattern is real, it should survive scrutiny, and if it doesn't, I'll tell you that too.
Rome, the eternal city, built on 7 hills.
The hills themselves reach between 40 and 51 meters above sea level, the Aventine, the Palatine, the Capitoline. But the hills were the fortress layer, the defensive high ground. The Roman Forum, the actual political and commercial heart of the empire, sits at approximately 21 meters above sea level. The place where laws were passed and emperors were mourned, and the fate of the known world was decided for centuries. Deliberately positioned in the valley between the hills, close enough to the Tiber for trade and water supply, Rome's founders didn't pick the highest ground available. They picked the most functional ground within a defensible landscape. Athens, the birthplace of Western democracy. The Acropolis, the sacred fortified hill, rises to 156 meters above sea level. But the Acropolis was never the city. It was the temple complex, the symbol, the place you looked up at. The Agora, where Socrates argued and was eventually sentenced to death, sits at roughly 70 to 90 meters. Average the ancient urban core, and you're looking at around 100 meters above sea level for the functioning city of Athens. Sacred ground higher, practical city lower. That relationship is going to keep appearing. Now Beijing. The city has roots going back over 3,000 years. Its role as imperial capital took clear form under the Zhou dynasty around 1046 BCE and reasserted itself through successive dynasties Han, Tang, Ming, Qing. The Forbidden City, the symbolic and administrative heart of Chinese imperial power, sits at 43 to 49 meters above sea level. In a landscape stretching from sea-level coastline to mountains exceeding 2,000 meters, the emperors consistently chose ground at roughly 45 meters. Not the highest defensible position, not the lowest flood risk. 45 meters in the valley of the North China Plain. 3 cities, 3 different continents, 3 civilizations with 0 contact during their founding periods. We have 21, 100, and 45 meters. Those numbers aren't identical, and I'm not going to pretend they are. But I'm not looking for identical numbers. I'm looking for a consistent logic, a principle. Let's move to the Americas, Cusco, the capital of the Inca Empire. At its peak, the Inca controlled nearly 2 million square kilometers and governed roughly 12 million people across extreme terrain, connected by a road network that rivaled Rome's in total distance. Cusco sits at 3,400 meters above sea level, dramatically higher than Rome or Beijing. But I want to be honest about why this doesn't break the pattern the way it first appears. Cusco sits at the confluence of two rivers, the Huatanay and the Tulumayu, which the Inca considered sacred. It offered flat valley floor in a landscape where flat ground is extraordinarily rare. The sacred valley of the Urubamba River actually sits lower, around 2,800 meters, and was the empire's primary agricultural zone. The Inca weren't ignoring lower ground, they were using it. Cusco was the administrative and religious center. The lower valley was where the food came from. The same logic, put your capital at a functional elevation, use lower ground for agriculture, just expressed across two linked locations. Back to the old world. Babylon. The city of Hammurabi, whose law code is among the earliest written legal systems we have. The city of Nebuchadnezzar, builder of what ancient sources describe as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though modern historians increasingly debate whether the Hanging Gardens were actually in Babylon at all, with some placing them in Nineveh instead. Babylon sat in the flat alluvial plain between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, its elevation approximately 32 meters above sea level, sitting between Rome's 21 and Beijing's 45, right in the middle of the range we're building. Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. Persepolis sits at roughly 1,770 meters above sea level, which sounds like it shatters the pattern. Until you consider the landscape. The Persian plateau averages well above 2,000 meters. Mountain passes frequently exceed 3,000. Within that landscape, Persepolis occupies a basin that is among the lower, more accessible positions available, the floor of its world. Constantinople, the city Constantine chose as the new capital of the Roman Empire in 330 CE. Though the site had been inhabited as the Greek city of Byzantium for nearly 1,000 years before that, a city that would remain a capital for over 1,600 years, the elevation of the ancient urban core, roughly 35 to 40 meters, positioned on a peninsula where the Bosphorus and the Golden Horn provided the defensive advantage that other capitals achieved through height. Different mechanism, same outcome. I want to say clearly what I am and am not claiming. I'm not claiming these cities were all built at the same altitude. They weren't. What I am claiming is that every one of these capitals was positioned at the lowest functional point within its specific geographic context, not the lowest point on Earth, the local floor, the place where the landscape stopped demanding too much of the people who lived there. And that principle appears in every civilization I looked at on every continent, with no exceptions in my dataset. Let's talk about why that might matter. There are legitimate scientific frameworks that could account for what we're seeing. The first is agricultural, and it's the most straightforward. The ancient world ran on grain. Every empire that ever existed was built on the ability to grow food at scale and store it reliably. There is a thoroughly documented relationship between elevation and agricultural productivity. Too high, frost kills crops before harvest. Too low in certain latitudes, seasonal flooding, humidity that accelerates grain spoilage, insects that flourish in warm, wet conditions. The optimal band for ancient grain agriculture consistently corresponds to elevations where temperature, rainfall, and drainage combine to produce reliable yields. When you map that agricultural band onto the locations of ancient capitals, the overlap is strong. The ancient founders were, at the core, farmers who scaled up. They put their cities where the food supply was most reliable. The second framework is climatic. Temperature drops roughly 6.5 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 meters of elevation gain. In a world without heating, without air conditioning, without modern insulation, the elevation of your city was the temperature you lived in permanently. too hot at low tropical elevations, waterborne disease, heat exhaustion, food spoilage. Too cold at high elevations, reduced agricultural yield, infrastructure damage from freeze-thaw cycles. The elevation band that ancient capitals occupy corresponds well to what climatologists identify as the temperate zone for pre-industrial human habitation. And every civilization found this band independently, without communicating with each other. The third framework is the most speculative, and I want to be honest about that. There is a body of research, some peer-reviewed, some preliminary, none of it settled science, exploring whether variations in Earth's geomagnetic field might have measurable effects on human health over long timescales. The evidence is genuinely preliminary. Most studies have small samples. Independent replication is limited. I'm not presenting this as established science, because it isn't. What I'm saying is that the question is being asked seriously by researchers at real institutions. Whether the ancient founders stumbled onto something real through empirical observation without understanding the mechanism, I genuinely don't know. Now here's the part I can't explain cleanly. If all of this is just practical wisdom, you'd expect the archaeological record to show a learning curve. Some early capitals built at the wrong elevation and abandoned, failed experiments, a visible process of trial and error. That's how early humans learned virtually everything else, through mistakes that left evidence in the ground. But that is not what the record shows. The elevation logic appears fully formed from the very beginning of urban civilization. The earliest cities in Mesopotamia around 3500 BCE, in the Indus Valley around 2600 BCE, in the Yellow River Basin, already demonstrate this spatial principle from their founding. There is no archaeological period of getting it wrong first. The first cities got it right, which either means the logic was so immediately obvious, it required no experimentation, or the knowledge was already organized before the cities were built, before the historical record begins. There is one more city I want to talk about, and this is the one that made me stop and just sit with what I was looking at. Mohenjo-daro, one of the primary urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization. A civilization that flourished in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India from roughly 3,300 to 1300 BCE. Its city planning was extraordinary. Standardized brick sizes used consistently across settlements hundreds of miles apart. Drainage and sewage systems that wouldn't be matched in Europe until centuries later. A writing system that remains almost entirely undeciphered, a city grid of geometric precision. Mohenjo-daro sits at approximately 27 meters above sea level, squarely within the low elevation band of our dataset. But what stopped me wasn't the number itself. It was what the number represents in the context of everything else about this civilization. We don't know what they called themselves or their cities. We don't know the names of any of their rulers, or whether they had rulers in any centralized sense. We don't know why the civilization declined. We don't know where the population went. We have their cities, their artifacts, their standardized weights and measures, their extraordinary infrastructure, and almost nothing else. The civilization that fits this pattern most cleanly is also the one that has told us the least about how it worked. The most precisely planned cities in the ancient world, built by people whose planning logic we can observe, but whose reasoning we cannot read. I don't have a clean conclusion for you. I'm not going to give you one, because I don't think the data supports one yet. What I have is a pattern that holds across 4 continents and 5,000 years of independent civilizational development. A pattern that practical logic can partially explain, but not entirely. The ancient world was more sophisticated than most of us were taught. Every decade of archaeology makes it less controversial. What remains genuinely open is the question of how that sophistication was organized. whether it emerged independently in parallel across disconnected cultures or reflects something older and more connected than our current models allow for. The elevation pattern doesn't answer that question, but it sits in the middle of it. Here's what I want you to do before you close this video. Look up the elevation of your own city. Then find the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in your region and look up its elevation. Come back and tell me what you found. I've been collecting responses to this question from viewers for months. What's accumulating in the comments is starting to form a pattern of its own. Your data point might end up in the follow-up video. The comment section is open. I read everything. Subscribe if you haven't. It's the only way the algorithm shows you the next video in this investigation. And the next one goes somewhere that makes this look like the easy part. I'll see you there.